بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
تبرج الجاهلية الأولى صلوات الله محمد وعلى محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. As you know, today is the 10th of month of Ramadan, which also coincides with the wafat of Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha. And inshallah, keeping that in mind, we will towards the end have a masaib concerning her. The verse that I recited, and I wanted to, usually the way I discuss whenever there is a personality whose wiladat or shahadat is being commemorated or celebrated, to talk and dedicate the whole talk about that person. And so inshallah, similarly tonight, in a very brief time that we have, we'll try and cover some aspects of the life of Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha. The verses that I recited are from Surah Ahzab, and these are the verses just before the verse which mentions Ayat Tathir, which is known as Ayat Tathir. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is discussing and addressing the wives of Rasulullah. The whole discussion for the few ayat before Tathir, or a couple of ayat after Ayat Tathir, in fact Ayat Tathir is not from the beginning, it doesn't begin with Innama yuridullah. It starts with something else and then it gets to Innama yuridullah. And therefore we see that this, yes, it's in the middle of it. And so we see that the discussion is regards to the wives. And this was also one of the hikmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to keep certain verses, I talked about it last year, to keep certain verses of Quran from being lost. Because nobody is going to change the Quran. Allah Himself is making this claim that inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun. But nonetheless, nobody is going to change the verses which are very straightforward. The four verses which are talking about the wahdaniyat of Allah. Nobody has any issue changing or tampering with Qul huwallahu ahad. But there were people who would have tampered with the verses which are concerning the Ahlul Bayt and concerning the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. And for that reason, these verses were systematically placed in Quran so that nobody touches them. Here is the same case, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the wives of Rasulullah, and then in the midst of talking about the wives of Rasulullah, He throws in the ayat, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ إِلَى آخِرِ. So we see that no way person will look at it and say, well, the discussion is about wives, the prior and the post discussion is about wives, let's just leave this ayah must be concerning them. And therefore that's why we see many of the mufassirin of Ahl Sunnah went towards the inclusion of the wives of Rasulullah in the Ayat Tathir, where our stance is a little bit different, because we believe that it was a clear hadith proving that ayat when it was revealed, that Prophet was in the house of one of the wives. When she said, am I amongst this Ahlul Bayt, or do I enter under this cloak? Prophet said, Anti alal khair. You are on the righteousness, but you are not part of Ahlul Bayt. So this was something which was very clear as far as we are concerned. Nothing to take away from the status of those wives of Rasulullah, but nonetheless they did not have the status to join those who were known as Ahlul Bayt. This ayat, I'll translate it very quickly. It says, O wives of the Prophet, you are not like other women. Ya nisa an-nabi lastunna ka'ahadim minan nisa'i. If you are wary of God, do not be complacent in your speech. Do not make your speech delicate, so that those in whose heart is sickness should aspire. Speak honorable words, stay in your houses, and do not flaunt your finery like the former days of ignorance. وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا تَبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى. Do not turn back to the days that were the days of Jahiliyyat, after Prophet has left. Now, it's not, addressing, there are certain couple of incidents which in particular this ayat is referring towards, but that's not our discussion. Inshallah, we will not get into that. Talking about Hazrat Khadija is easy as well as difficult. The status that she holds in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sight of our Prophet himself, it's just amazing. And when you look at it, how do you speak about Khadija salamullahi alayha? One thing that we find out, one thing that we look at it, is that when Prophet himself mentions that when I was coming back from Mi'raj, and when I was descending, I asked Jibreel, do you have any hajat? Do you have anything that you want to ask? Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam replied by saying that send my and Allah's salutation on Khadijatul Kubra. Send my salam and Allah's salam towards Khadijatul Kubra. Prophet said yes. Prophet comes home, he comes back from Mi'raj, he comes to Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha, and he says to her that Allah and His angel Jibreel have conveyed their salam to you. The reply that Hazrat Khadija said, she said, Inna Allaha huwa salam, wa fihi salam, wa ilayhi salam, wa ala Jibreel as-salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That indeed my Lord, Inna Rabbi huwa salam, indeed my Lord is, salamti and praise and salutations belong to Him. From Him is all the salutations, and to Him belong all the salutations, and to Jibreel is also salam. So we see from this aspect the status of Hazrat Khadija, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending salutation to someone, what is it that we can add on to the honor and the respect of that person? We see that Hazrat Khadija salamullah alayha was a businesswoman. The stories of her fortune is not hidden from anyone. The things that she performed and she did for the sake of Rasulullah. We realize this aspect as well, that there's discrepancy in the books of ahadith as far as Prophet's age and Hazrat Khadija's age. That is something which we'll let the historians discuss and mention. But as far as our stance is concerned, that Hazrat Khadija was not 40 years old for that matter. In fact, she had never been married before. But some historians say, no, she was married, she was 40 years old, so on and so forth. In fact, when I was growing up, going through school in Pakistan, the discussion and the chapter in regards to Prophet and Hazrat Khadija clearly mentions that she was 40 years old at the time she married Rasulullah. She had already brought 3 daughters with her, Zainab, Kulthum, and Ruqayya. So this was something which was brought up. So it's a popular Sunni stance in regards to Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha. But many of our scholars believe, not just from this time, but from the before, that when she married Rasulullah, she was never been married before, and she obviously did not have any children. But nonetheless, it does not change the status of Hazrat Khadija. It does not make her status come down by any means. If there were other daughters Hazrat Khadija had through Rasulullah, even then, it does not change the status that Hazrat Fatima Zahra enjoys. Right? So if we were to say that Hazrat Khadija had 4 daughters, Zainab, Kulthum, Ruqayya, and Fatima Zahra, it does not change one bit in the status of Hazrat Fatima. Fatima is someone else. Those other daughters are something else. Where similarly, if she is the mother of 4 daughters, nothing changes from as far as her status is concerned. Hazrat Khadija still enjoys that lofty station in the sight of Rasulullah as well as in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So we see that a person of her caliber, who when she comes to know Rasulullah, she gives everything in the way of this religion. And that's why we see that the wealth of Khadija was something which was used for the prosperity of this religion. Alam yajidka yatiman fa'aba, wa wajadaka dhallan fahada, wa wajadaka a'ilan fa'aghna. In fact, this ayat is referring towards Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha, that, O Prophet, did we not find you وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا, without any family, without any ail, فَأَغْنَى, and we made you self-sufficient? Did we not find you in a status where you were in need, and we provided you through Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha? So if anyone talks about the wealth of Hazrat Khadija, just imagine, it's one thing to have the wealth. Here I want to address those, who are capable in our communities, it's one thing to have wealth. It's another thing to be able to spend that wealth. And where do you spend? We had the discussion last night as well, if you remember, that 4 things we will be questioned, aside from all the obligations that we have. 1, your youth, your life. 3rd, where did you earn this wealth? 4th, where did you spend this wealth? So these 2 questions will be very critical to us, that where we got this wealth from, and where did we put this wealth, and how did we spend it. These are very critical as far as our lives are concerned. We look at Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha, and we should learn, and not just the men of the society should learn, rather the women in the society should also learn, that their status in order to go ahead and fulfill the duties and their duties towards this religion. It never stops. Don't ever think that what can I do? What kind of change can I bring? What am I going to be able to do if I give 100, if I give 1,000? No, this is where we understand and we realize it's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking from you, the extent that you go ahead and donate or give. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking for the taqwa that is hidden behind your contribution. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Rahmani Hamdani in his book Fatimatu Zahra Bahjatu Qalbi Mustafa quotes from Shafi'i, who said once Prophet came home and heard Khadija salamullah alayha talking to someone while there was no one in the room. Prophet heard her whisper and speak to someone. When inquired, she said that I'm speaking to the baby inside my womb who is consoling me. Imagine, Hazrat Khadija salamullah alayha is someone who must have received a lot of proposals for marriage. And she denied those proposals because none of them fit the criteria to marry Hazrat Khadija. When she eventually marries our Prophet, this is where the women of the Quraysh, they boycott her. They strand her by herself. Not that she needed them, but especially when women are in need in those difficult stages, they spared her, they did not take care of her. This is where Janab Khadija, or any woman for that matter, would be seeking help from other women. Hazrat Khadija, she said, in those days, when I was feeling lonely, I would be consoled by the baby who's inside my womb. She would speak to me, and there was none other than Hazrat Fatimatu Zahra, salamullahi alayha. So she would speak to her. She would speak to that baby, and that baby would be someone consoling Hazrat Khadija. We see in regards to when Prophet mentions, and Prophet takes pride in certain individuals. Prophet takes pride in Hazrat Khadija. He says what? He said, when the revelation came upon me, and I came home, when I told Khadija that I have received a revelation, right away she believes in me. Without putting any questions forward that you might have been hurt, you might have been thinking this way, you might have been struggling and whatnot, right away she puts her belief in me, saying that yes, I already knew from before you would be someone like this. Nobility will be asking for you, and therefore she's the one who took care of me at the time when people stranded me. She provided me with her wealth when people deprived me of that wealth. She believed in me at the time nobody believed in me. This is our Prophet taking pride in Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha. Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam said, Sadiqul aqil at-ta'bu, the friend of an intellectual person is pain. So when you are at the level of intellect, right away pain is your friend, since their vision is higher than the rest of the people who are unable to understand, and therefore sometimes they interject and even mock. This is what happens to Rasulullah, that when Prophet talks about the things that he has received, people would call him crazy, they would call him majnoon, they would call him insane, they would call him sahir, magician, they will call him kahin, and they will give different titles to Rasulullah. وَقَالُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِي نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الذِّكْرُ إِنَّكَ لَمَجْنُونَ. They said, "Oh, you to whom the reminder has been sent, you are indeed crazy." But Prophet himself is known as Rahmatan lil Alameen. Rahmatan lil Alameen demands what? That everywhere he comes across any sort of criticism, Prophet would be showering mercy onto those people. Whenever someone would be, mocking Rasulullah, whenever someone would be making fun of Rasulullah, whenever someone would be hurting Rasulullah, when he goes to Taif and he bleeds, what would Prophet reply by saying? Not by saying, "Oh Allah, send your azab onto these people." Instead, he would say, "Allahumma aghfir li qawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun." Oh Allah, forgive these people because they do not know what they're doing. And that's why he got this title of Rahmatal lil Alameen. But we see at that point, this is where Hazrat Khadija's discussion comes into play. The Prophet says, when people were denying me, they were calling me crazy, they were calling me insane, even my own family members were not ready to listen to me. It was Khadija salamullahi alayha who consoled me and who provided me when people were depriving me. Prophet was sent among such ignorant people. The only person who understood him initially was Hazrat Khadija. So you got to understand from this aspect as well. A lot of time people say women are degraded in Islam. Women are given a second degree status in Islam, for example, or second type citizens, right? No, that's not the case. We see the first person who's coming to understanding of what this Prophet is bringing is a woman. It's not other men of the intellectual men of the society. Rather, it's a woman who's coming to understanding as to what this Prophet is all about, what this Prophet is receiving. He's receiving messages from the unseen. He's becoming a prophet, or he was always a prophet. He's becoming a messenger at this moment. So this is where we understand that it would not be an ordinary person. She herself possessed those high calibers or intellectual level. Therefore, she was able to understand what Prophet was receiving. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That's why we see when Prophet received the first revelation, he said that I have been chosen as a prophet. Khadija salamullah alaiha didn't say, "What proof do you have? What do you say that? What makes you say such a thing?" Rather, she said, "I knew it from before." Not that she's saying, "You did not know I knew it from before." Prophet also knew it, but he still needs someone to console. She said, "I knew it from before." We can't say enough about her personality, just that Imam of our time, when he reappears, therefore should be placed, therefore she should be placed a member for him in Masjid al-Haram, and he would say who Khadija salamullah alayha was. And that's why we read in that ziyarat, when our Imam of our time is mentioning Hazrat Khadija, he mentions her by Gharra. He said Khadijatul Gharra, Kubra Khadijatul Gharra. This is how Imam of our time mentions her. If you see Khadijatul Kubra salamullah alayha was the best of Prophet's wife, Ashraful Zawjat al-Rasul, it would not be an understatement, because Prophet himself was the one declaring that throughout her life and even after her wafat. This is where we see a lot of the wives of Rasulullah could not bear to understand, and that's a natural thing for that matter. That if there was another wife for this man, this another person, right away there would be this jealousy that would exist. But the jealousy to the extent that whenever a Prophet would see something, whenever a Prophet would be in trouble in a sense, he would be feeling difficult time, right away he would remind herself of the time that he had spent with Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha, the time when it was the most difficult of the times. We see that Hazrat Khadija, and a lot of people also raise this question in regards to our Prophet. First thing by which you can go ahead and destroy or can damage someone's character is by associating, multiple marriages to that person. And that was the same case when it came to our second Imam. A lot of people associated multiple wives to him. Not just that they associated multiple wives to him, but they also said he was rajulun mitlaq, that he used to divorce a lot of wives, a lot of women. Similar is the case in regards to our Prophet, that people raise this question, especially non-Muslims, saying that Prophet was someone that who took so many wives. And even amongst our own people, there are people that they raise this question as to why Prophet has so many wives. When you look at it, a person who's at the peak of his youth is the first initial years when a person gets married. This is where we understand that Prophet remained with one wife for 25 years of his life, right? He got married to Hazrat Khadija when he was 25. She died when he was 50 years old. The 10th year of the Bi'isat of Rasulullah, when the wafat of Hazrat Khadija takes place. So, for the first 25 years, This is where a person who's growing up and his needs are more at that time, he remained married to this one wife. And even after the wafat of Hazrat Khadija, it's not that he was in a rush to go ahead and get married right away. There's his whole, migration that takes place, and even after that, all of the other wives that come about. But nonetheless, we see the reason behind the wives and these marriages of Rasulullah. One was that either he was giving shelter to those widows, or he was marrying those. By marrying them, he would be able to expand the Islamic rule. Why? Because if you became damad of a tribe, the whole tribe would become your followers. And that's what the reason Prophet had these marriages. There were a lot of political reasons to go ahead and add on to the importance of that. If these marriages has something to do with Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have definitely granted children through other wives. The fact that he did not grant children through other wives, only through Hazrat Khadija salamullah alayha, also proves the point as to what was the reason behind all of these other marriages that were taking place. Only do we find in the history, Maria Qibtiyah, she bore one child, and that too died in his infancy, although he was alive at the time when the event of Mubahala was taking place. But we see that khitab that Imam Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam is given to Hazrat Khadija is, in fact, the khitab to our 12th Imam is what? Yabna Khadijat al-Ghurra. He is referred to as Yabna Khadijat al-Khurra, taking pride that you are the son of Khadijat al-Kubra. If similarly we see that our third Imam, Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, on Ashura is saying what? He says, Ana ibnu Khadijat al-Kubra. I am the son of Khadijat al-Kubra. Just imagine Imam of our time and Imam Hussain is taking pride in Hazrat Khadijat al-Kubra. Then who would go ahead and compare her status to anyone else? She is not just Ummul Mu'mineen, but she's Ummu Sayyidat al-Nisa'il Alameen. Salli ala. I'm not running a comparison over here, but if other wives are referred to as Ummuhat al-Mu'mineen, Janab Khadija is not just Ummul Mu'mineen, she's Ummu Sayyidat al-Nisa'il Alameen as well. She's Ummu A'immat al-Masumeen, she's Kafilatu Amir al-Mu'mineen. These are not ordinary titles, brothers and sisters. What is it? She is the mother of Sayyidatun Nisa'il Alameen, the one who is the Sayyidah, the one who is the master and the leader of all the women of Alameen. She is the mother of her. She is the mother of A'immatul Ma'asumeen, those Ma'asumeen Imams that we have. She is the mother of those Imams. And lastly, she is the one who took care of Amirul Mu'mineen, Kafilatu Amirul Mu'mineen. Just imagine the status of Hazrat Khadija. So therefore we see that at this point, when Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha spends these years with Rasulullah, and she's willing to go through all the difficulties, but she, at the end of her life, she demands something from Rasulullah. She said, O Rasul, O Prophet, I might not have been the wife that you wanted, that you deserved, so if I had any shortcomings, please forgive me. Prophet replies by saying, no, Khadija, there was no shortcoming as far as you're concerned. Then she also requested, O Prophet, and there are different riwayat in this regards that we find, that she was too shy to ask Rasulullah this question. But it shows the ultimate level of the love and muhabbat that she had for Rasulullah. She says, one riwayah says that she asked her daughter, Fatimatu Zahra, at that time, who was only 5 years old, to ask your father for this. Some riwayah says she herself made this wasiyat. She said, O Prophet, I want your libas to be my kafan. Just imagine. People talk about the worldly love. Khadija salamullah alayha loves Prophet so much that she says, even after my death, I want to be able to smell the fragrance of Rasulullah, so that I'm buried with the kafan of Rasulullah, so that there's nothing that could separate me and Rasulullah. This was the wasiyat that she makes at that point. We see that after having spent these years with Rasulullah, with the ebbs and flows of the life, where do they end up being? They end up being in Shayb Abi Talib. Could you have imagined a lady who's a businesswoman, whose wealth is recognized in a way that 80 camels at that time used to carry the, wasail and the resources and things that she was, commodity that she was selling. And it was a big deal at that time. Would come a day to that person that should be spending her time in Shayb Abi Talib. Do we ask this Muslim Ummah also that as to what happened to Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha? All the wealth that she spent for Islam, yes, those were kuffar who pushed her into Shayb Abi Talib, but what happened to after the death of Hazrat Khadija salamullahi alayha? That when she's buried in this place known as now Jannatul Mu'alla, what has happened to the grave of Hazrat Khadija? We see that coming towards the end, that Hazrat Khadija makes this request from Rasulullah, that you give me the kafan of your libas. But then when she says this, she tells her daughter to be stepped out of the room. These are the last few moments of the life of Hazrat Khadija. She asks that I don't want my daughter, who's only 5 years old at this moment, to see her mother die in this way. How difficult it is for a daughter to see a mother die. She says, it's very difficult for a mother to see a 5-year-old sitting next to me while I'm passing away. So she asked Hazrat Fatima Zahra to be taken out of the room. Hazrat Fatima Zahra, a 5-year-old girl, she was taken out of the room. And this is where Hazrat Khadija, after the illness, after the difficulties of Shayb Abi Talib that she suffered, she leaves this world. She leaves this world, which is 3 years prior to the migration to Madinatul Munawwarah. 10 years after the Baithat of Rasulullah. A person who was the console of Rasulullah, the sole console of Rasulullah, the sole person who used to bring Rasulullah into a place whenever Rasulullah would be down, she would bring a smile into his face. This is where Hazrat Rasulullah also feels the burden of how he would put Khadija to rest. How would he go ahead and put her body, lay her body to rest? But nonetheless, this is where one of the most difficult times for Rasulullah. And that is the reason when she is the one who declared the whole year to be Amul Huzn. It's not just huzn and grief for Rasul himself, but it's huzn for all of humanity, all of mankind, all of Muslim Ummah, because Khadija salamullah alayha is no longer alive. It was very difficult for him to even imagine, but he puts her body to rest. He comes back home. When he's coming back home, just imagine having lost a loved one, having lost a person who was your dear, the one who would take care of you. But just imagine now you'd be spending a night, the first night without that person. He looks at Hazrat Fatima Zahra. She herself is very perplexed. She says, Aina ummi ya abati? Where is my mother, O my father? Nanabi Rasulullah, with all the degrees of characters and behaviors and morals that he possesses, with all the patience that he has, he is unable to answer to his 5-year-old daughter, where has he taken Khadijatul Kubra? He would not be able to answer until Jibreel comes, and Jibreel whispers and Jibreel inspires Rasulullah, O Rasul, take Fatimatul Zahra, put her on your lap and tell her that your mother Khadija is in the company of Asiya, wife of Fir'aun. Tell your daughter that Khadijatul Kubra, your mother, is in the company of the sister of Musa salamullah alayh. Tell her that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has built this qasr for Hazrat Khadija, and she is at a place where you would not have to worry about. Rasulullah says this to Fatimatul Zahra, that your mother is in this state. Janab Fatimatul Zahra is also feeling consoled at this moment. But I would say that after having told these things to Fatimatul Zahra, she felt, yes, my mother is at a better place. But when the time comes that Fatimatul Zahra is leaving this world, this is where the children are brought. Fatima is leaving this world. Fatima can weep and cry when Khadijatul Kubra left this world. But Amirul Mu'mineen says to Zainab and Kulthum, Oh Zainab, Oh Kulthum, do not weep out loud, because the Sayyida's wasiyat is that she should be buried quietly, that nobody should find find out that Sayyida has been buried, I would request that you do not weep out loud. How difficult it would be for a person like this. But we see this trend continues. Khadija gave her wealth for Islam to prosper. Janab Fatima went ahead and controlled and went ahead and protected Imamat. This is where we see the history continues in the form of Hazrat Zainab. Last few sentences, inshallah we will conclude. Janab Zainab, she's known as Sharikatul Hussain. How Khadija began this journey, how Zainab Salamullah Alaiha is ending this journey. But when the time comes, when the musibat of Zainab is mentioned, nobody says that Khadija ever had to give her veil. Nobody says that Fatima ever had to give her chadar. But when it comes to Zainab, through the streets of Kufa, through the streets and bazaar of Sham, her veils were snatched. Ala la'natullah al-qawm al-zalimin. Wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayyamun qalibin yanqalibun. Oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we have committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, give us the ability and the tawfiq to be able to follow the commands and the teachings of Masumin alayhimu salatu wassalam. Oh Allah, hasten the zuhur of our fated Imam. Make us among the helpers and the soldiers for Imam.